Gender. I knew it was going to do that. Sometimes I think, how on earth did Jesus talk to 5,000 people without a microphone? Sometimes I think, how was it in the early Canada when the churches were full and they had no microphones? What's different now? And that's something for you to think about, but that's not what I'm going to talk to you about this morning. One of the things I'd like to talk to you about is the gender pronouns that you heard in the readings this morning. The word him, the word his. And in a main way, in a very dominant way, the gender pronouns in the Bible are biased towards the male image. When we speak about God, we speak in male terms, almost universally in the Christian experience. But there is reason to question that. And that's what I'd like to do a little bit today by looking at these two texts. The first thing I'd like to say is that every person in this place came out of a womb. Now in the future that might not be so. In the future babies might come out of laboratories. Because you see, as human beings, we've come so far in getting rid of nature and building something different for ourselves that we are likely to experience some very remarkable things. But I would like to emphasize the womb as the place of gestation. And that is to say, the womb as a place where life takes form. And in the womb, for life to take form, the first thing that has to happen is that a seed has to be, or an egg it's called, I think, I'm not sure, but a seed, let's say, has to be fertilized. And once that seed is fertilized, a whole process begins over which human beings have almost no control. It's happening in a secret place, in a hidden place. And when we speak about wisdom, the reading that we had together, wisdom is what the Bible considers to be that which forms the child in the womb. It's inscrutable. That is to say, we can't figure it out. Oh, we can analyze it. We can take things apart, dissect them and look at them and say this does this and this does that. But the actual miracle, the actual mystery can't be explained. Yes, it happens like this, but why? Now, the story of Mary is a key story because it's a story of reversal. That is to say, something that has been present for a long, long time is now turned upside down. And the story of Mary is a story of the longing of human being for things to be different. So when Mary was growing up in her parents' home, when she was growing up in her relationship with her Auntie Elizabeth and Uncle Zechariah, she was hearing all kinds of things about the faith of her people. But the things she was hearing were not the same as the things that were being taught in the temple in Jerusalem or in some of the synagogues around and about Jerusalem. The things she was hearing and seeing and experiencing were things presented to her by her Uncle Zechariah and her Auntie Elizabeth and her nephew, cousin, John. I'm not very good with family relations. John. And John was Elizabeth's son. And John again was a son who was not expected. Elizabeth is called a barren woman. That is to say, she was a woman who could not conceive in her womb. But God made it so that a child was conceived, and that child was John. And John became the one who announced the coming of Jesus. So what we have in this story, in the beginning of Luke, is the indication that whatever we think about masculine pronouns, the story is now about feminine presence. And the thing is, I think most of you will acknowledge that in human history, moms have a stake in things in a way that dads might not. That's changing in the modern world as gender roles are becoming more equally distributed. Dads are now learning how to take care of children. Dads are learning how to be all kinds of things that they might never have known they could be before. Tender, kind, gentle. But in those days, it was a patriarchy. Everything was run by men, and women were basically simply the servants of men. And this wasn't just a Jewish thing. This was picked up in the Christian tradition by persons like Augustine, a very early voice in the development of Christian theology. And Augustine, as a Christian, suggested that women really were nothing more than dirt in which men could plant their seeds so that men could grow little children to be their inheritors. Women had no status. And for the whole history of the church, women's status has been deeply downplayed. And I've often wondered about that. Why? Why is woman's role hidden in the Bible? Because once you start reading, you realize it's everywhere, the presence of women. And the best way that I can explain it is that men tend to have an assertive character. They assert themselves. So wherever there's wars in the past, there's always been men with spears and bows and guns and all kinds of things who have been asserting themselves. But women are more receptive. And that is a gift to the human race, the human being. Because it's in receptivity that we have access to God. When we are closed, when we are asserting ourselves, it's difficult for God to get in. And at this time in early Jerusalem, the patriarchy was so solidly in charge that God had no room to move anymore. And God, looking about, said, how on earth am I going to change the world? How am I going to do something new? And He looked about and He chose this little girl, Mary. Now, in the reading we had today, the word used for Mary is virgin. And that's a word that has got theologians occupied for a long, long time. There are many controversies about this. Was she a virgin? But the story in Luke is drawn mostly from the prophet Isaiah. Everything Jesus says and does can be traced to the words of Isaiah. The psalm we read today is traced to the words of Isaiah, and it speaks about someone who wants to do God's will. But in Isaiah, the text is quite clear. It's a young woman who conceives a child. Now, I'm not sure why the virgin became so important to Christianity, but I think it was another way of men establishing themselves as dominant and women as subservient. And I'm not sure how to explain that. But I do want to say that Mary was a young girl who lived in a very difficult time, who had the influence of relatives who thought about the possibility of renewal, and Mary hungered for that. And I have met many, many young men and women in our country and in other places, and young people are hungry for the world to be different. And what I'd like to suggest is that Mary represents for us receptivity to the word that God is speaking. And so Mary hears a word. The seed is planted in her imagination. And that is represented by the physical reality of her pregnancy. But it's the spiritual lesson that we want to learn. Mary is engaged by a messenger from God. The messenger gives her a message. She questions the message. And then, after being reassured by the angel, she embraces the message, the word of God. And that word enters into her, and a new life begins to take shape within her. And again, the physical aspect of this is given to us so that we can look at the spiritual dimension of it. And what much of Christianity has done through the ages is they've taken the fact of the young woman being surprisingly pregnant, and they've made it about a God who is supernatural. And the one thing we are working hard at in the modern world is to break the idea that God is supernatural. Now that might be hard for some of you to hear because you grew up with that idea. You were told that idea in Sunday school. Your moms and dads believed that idea. Your grandparents believed that idea. And that was Mary's predicament. Because everybody of her culture believed something about God, and she had a new idea about God. And the new idea, when it came to birth, was expressed in the life of her son. And I would like to suggest to you that Mary's relationship with her son was not, as Augustine said, that she was simply the ground out of which he could grow, but that in the womb, her character, her longing, her desire, her hope was already being communicated to that young human being inside of her. And when that young human being came out as a child, her love, her nurture, holding the baby to her breast to feed her the milk that was inside of her, her giving of herself to that child. And then as the child grew, the stories she would tell, the songs that she would sing, the way in which she lived her life, that was the major influence in who Jesus became. Jesus was not shaped by the patriarchy. Jesus was not shaped by the teaching of the priests. Jesus was not shaped by the prophets of the day. Jesus' identity and character was shaped by the influence of his mother. And what I'd like to say about that is that in the earth right now, there is so much going on that is so troubling, so disturbing. There's so much going on in your life that is troubling and disturbing. And what I'd like to invite you to do is to open your heart to the Word of God that comes and allow that Word to settle inside of your imagination, your spiritual womb, and to take root there. And that Word is, you are loved. No matter what your life situation, no matter where you are at, no matter how hard anxiety is crowding at you, you are loved. And Jesus grew up knowing that he was loved. And his mom was the one who demonstrated that love. She made that love manifest in her body, in her spirit, in her character. And I often imagine that Joseph, who sort of became his father, but men were separate from women and children in those days, that Joseph would sit with some of the leaders of the temple in the front room of the house, and Mom, Mary, would be in the kitchen preparing something for them, maybe some tea and some cookies or who knows what. And while she was preparing, the boy would be hanging around with her. And my idea is, in my imagination, is that Mary would chat with Jesus about what the men were talking about. And I have the feeling that she said to him one day, you know what they're talking about, God? You can trust that. But the way they act, don't do it. So when Jesus grows up, he doesn't act like the scribes. He doesn't act like the Pharisees. He doesn't act like the Sadducees. He acts like his mom. Wherever he meets somebody, he's kind. He's generous. He's supportive. He's encouraging. And in many ways, that's the job description for mom. So what I'd like to suggest to you is that there's something receptive in each and every one of you, not just the women, but in the men as well. And I would like to speak especially to the men, because we have been trained that we're not supposed to be like a girl. I was called a crybaby in school because I was tender-hearted. I was called a sissy in school because I wasn't a bully. All such things. But what I'd like to say is there's something in us that is receptive, and we would like to get in touch with that. And then we hear the word that comes from God, the word that says, you are my beloved children. I care for you. I want to lead you. I want to guide you. I don't want to control and manipulate you. I want you to become who you are. That's Mary. When she looks at Jesus, she doesn't try to impose her will on him. She tries to get his character to come out. Just like all parents. They want their kids to grow up to be the best that they can be. Well, Jesus, near the end of his life, which we will talk about more and more as Good Friday approaches, says at one point in time, You know how it is with the great people of the earth, the lords and the masters, how they sit down to eat and they are served. And Jesus says, but I am not among you like those people. Jesus says, I am among you as one who serves. And in that culture, in fact, in most cultures, even in our culture up until fairly recently, men worked and women served men. Men sat down, wives brought meals to tables. Men got up to watch TV, wives washed dishes. It's changing. Right? But Jesus says, I am not here in the way of a typical man. I'm here much more in the way of a woman. And that opens up for us the opportunity to think again about the identity of God. Is God a Father in heaven who rules with an iron fist and demands obedience or else you will be punished? Or is God a loving, embracing, warm, welcoming, serving, supporting, encouraging presence in our lives? And I would like to maintain that it's time to get rid of the idea of God as the all-powerful, almighty, who destroys the wicked and blesses the righteous. I would like to give you the idea that God is within you as the creative, free, courageous, responsible spirit of true human being. Jesus never calls himself by any great titles. He simply says, I'm a human being. So what I'd like to encourage you to do is to be responsive to what God is saying. Let that word be received as Mary received it, and let your spirit to say to the word that comes to you, let it be with me according to your will and purpose. Let God move in your life. Let God shape your purpose, not the ideas that are so common in our world. Mary is a very special person in the Bible, as are all the women of the Bible. And I encourage you to, next time you read the Bible from cover to cover, pay attention to where the women are in the story. You will be surprised. They are absolutely essential. Thanks be to God. Will you come and follow me? That's a song. And I'd like to invite you to follow that feminine spirit which is now loose in the earth.